Hi, how are you? Hope you're doing okay. I really appreciate you listening to my podcast. It's one of the things I learned when mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's is we have to talk about it. We have to talk to other people. We have to hear about other people's experiences because one may not help you, but the other one may be the key to everything you needed to know. Today we're talking with Tony Stewart, a husband who lost a wife, wrote a book, Carrying the Tiger. And, he and I talk about his experience. We talk about the book, but more than anything, we talk about write it down. No matter what you're going through, try to keep a journal. Keep a journal by your side of the bed, even if it's just a cheap notebook from the drugstore. I don't care. Just write down how you feel, what you think, what you wish, good or bad. Just write it down and then go to sleep. After I lost my mom to Alzheimer's, I decided to take everything I learned and everyone I've met since and share that information and the lessons learned. I'm Dayna Steele, and this is hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's, a caregiver's manual, a how-to guide for friends and family, and a safe space to learn and vent and maybe share a glass of wine.
Then recording in progress. I'll turn on my video.
All righty. Hey,
Make
Tony,
this
how are
bigger.
you?
Hey, Dana. Nice to meet you.
Nice
I'm
to meet
fine.
you.
I didn't bring a big glass of wine, I'm afraid. That comes
You
a little
know,
later.
it is. I'm on California time, so it's a little early. Just I so often hear the question, but why did you write this book? And why do you write the play? And why do you continue to talk about Alzheimer's and caregiving? And it's because, it affects so many of us. Like Rosalind Carter once said, what is it? There's only four kinds of people in the world: those who will be caregivers, those who are caregivers, those who have been caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. And, the same questions could be asked of my guest on this episode of hashtag Surviving Alzheimer's. And that is Tony Stewart. Tony, thank you so much for joining me for a conversation about caregiving.
Well, you're very welcome, Dana, and thank you for inviting me to your show.
You have a great great press kit, by the way. Great. I love it when people include questions, although it's what I've done since I was 17 years old. But your questions could very well be something that I ask myself. The title of Tony's book is Carrying the Tiger, Living with Cancer, Dying with Grace, and Finding Joy While Grieving. And that sort of sums it all up. Tell me Tell me the backstory, the beginning story of Carrying the Tiger. Why did you write this book, Tony?
I wrote this book. Initially, I wrote the material that's in the book for my friends. Lynn, my wife, had been diagnosed with incurable cancer. She had a lot of friends. We were staying in touch with them. It never occurred to us to keep it a secret. And about a month in, one of Lynn's friends wrote her an email which said, uh, I just realized I started to answer a question you didn't ask.
That's okay. That's
That's
okay.
okay.
But it's
So
good,
let me,
when you and I go back and start reliving this, you chronicled it on Caring Bridge,
yes,
which I've followed, unfortunately, so many friends on that site. And I chronicled it on Facebook. It becomes overwhelming, doesn't it, Tony?
it was
Especially when you love
completely.
somebody who has so many friends.
It was completely overwhelming. So we had all of these friends. We started exchanging emails back and forth with them. It overwhelmed us. It was overwhelming me. We got in touch with caringbridge.org. One of our friends suggested it, and I started posting on CaringBridge. Lynn was completely happy to be open about her cancer in conversation, but she asked me to do the writing. So starting early on, and this journey of ours went on for years because we were very lucky she got into a clinical trial. She actually had more years of life than we expected when it started. I was writing about this, but I thought I was writing only for our friends. And then as the thing went on, I started to get comments back because you can write comments in Caring Bridge saying, please keep going. This is so interesting. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for helping me. I'm learning from you, which we took as encouragement at the time. But I kind of filed them away in the back of my head so that after Lynn died, and when I continued writing through my deep grief, and people continued to write back, "Hey, Tony, thank you so much. I love reading what you're writing. This is helping me." When I eventually reached the point that my grief was starting to become normalized in my life, it never goes away, and I wanted to try and find some meaning out of all of this, I thought, okay, I'm going to go back and take all those posts. And by that point, there were 700 pages of Caring Bridge, and I'm going to turn them into a book that other people could read so that they could have the benefit of the same sorts of things that I shared with our friends. And
Did you
that's where the
find
book came
it?
from.
Did you find it? I mean, I'm getting a little PTSD talking to you, Tony. It took me forever to sit down and really curate and go through all of the Facebook posts because it was 2.5 years of almost daily posting things and then going through all the comments because
Hmm.
obviously you don't want to put all the comments in a book. To the point that I had a friend that came in and helped me sort of whittle it down. I found it very hard at first to go back and read a lot of it. How did it feel when you first started compiling it as a book?
Well, the first time I tried to do this was only 6 months after Lynn had died. And I printed it all out and I sat around for about a week thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And I made useless notes in the margin. It was impossible. I was crying all the time. The memories were too fresh. So I came back to it about 3 years later. And I would say it was an iterative process. It took more than a year. First pass was simply editing the post down to figure out what I had. Then came the, oh, well, this is really kind of wonderful for my 50 friends, but no one else is going to read it because you can't understand who we are. And I spent about a year trying to add in all the information that lived in between the posts that we hadn't put in the posts that would help you actually live the story with us. And that during that year, I went from crying all the time to crying part of the time till eventually it became, I call it a craft project. It became something where I had revisited these memories so often, they were no longer triggering tears. And I was really looking at it as, do I need to say this? Do I need to say that? Is that the right word? How about if I do this differently? And during that year, I think I transitioned from where accessing all of these memories and looking at them so closely was really bringing it all back and making me as tearful as I had been 3 years earlier. It was 3 years later when I started this
Wow. I often
to
advise
the other.
people that, you can't do this alone. You
Hmm.
and if you're one of the if you're somebody who's not very social and not very open about things, that, you're not going to be writing a book on Caring Bridge like Tony or a book on Facebook like I did with surviving Alzheimer's. At least get yourself a journal. And if you
Yes.
don't want to spend that kind of money, you don't want to go to Paper Source or whatever, pick up a spiral notebook at CVS. I don't care where you get it. Get paper and pen and journal. Write something. Write where you were happy today. Write where you were sad today. Write where you were confused today. Write whatever, just to get it onto paper. I found it extremely cathartic when I would write the post.
Hmm.
I found it extremely cathartic when people would come back and comment.
Yes. I
Yes.
lived
And
for those comments. Lynn lived for those. We'd keep refreshing the page because CaringBridge didn't auto refresh in those days to see the comments come in. They gave her so much strength.
yeah, because it feels so alone when you are the patient and you're the caregiver. Either one. Both are extremely lonely journeys. And you feel like at the time you're the only person going through it. And we all want to feel like we're a part of a community, even if it's a community of, Lynn dying of cancer or my mom dying of Alzheimer's. We just
Mhm.
don't, human beings aren't meant to be alone. So I don't know. I just found it so incredibly cathartic. But again, if you're not going to share it with the world, at least share it with yourself,
Yes.
and write it down. Get it out of your head.
I would also say that at least in my case, that first year with Lynn, I was only writing on Caring Bridge and being with Lynn. Our first year was very, very intensive. There were major operations. Things went wrong. Spent a lot of time in hospitals. And at the end of that time, I had a kind of a mini breakdown because all I had been doing was writing on Caring Bridge, and I hadn't gone and gotten help for myself in a more direct way. And I was having these thoughts like maybe it would be better if Lynn died sooner rather than later, that I could not share with Lynn, or I felt I couldn't. Until at the end of that time, I was sobbing on our bed and telling her I couldn't do this anymore. And I told her I'd been having those thoughts, and she actually wasn't pushed away. She pulled me to her, and it made us closer. But I went and got a therapist. Not everyone has that option. I found a therapist who took our insurance. It didn't actually cost me that much money. And I found that for the next 6 years, it was amazingly helpful because I couldn't put those thoughts in Caring
Right.
Bridge.
And
And
I
it was
think people should
amazingly
know
helpful to
that,
have someone.
right, if you can't afford therapy, there are your church, your synagogue, your temple, any sort of,
Yes.
I don't care if you're Catholic, you can go to the synagogue, religious organizations, you are surrounded by religion, and whether it's a church or a temple or a synagogue or whatever, they are going to have a support group. Odds
Yes.
are, hospital systems have free support group. There are free support group. Community centers have
Yes.
support groups. So don't be embarrassed. Don't be frightened. Don't worry about crying in front of strangers or whatever. You're going to find out that there is a community of people who are feeling exactly like you are. Carrying the Tiger. Um, Tell me the title. Where did that come from? What does it mean?
It's funny. That's the question I started to answer at the beginning of our conversation.
Well, you can answer it now.
I'm going to answer it now because I love the story. About a month in, Lynn got an email from a friend which said, in our Tai Chi group, we carry a tiger for friends who are going through difficult circumstances, facing real challenges. The three motions of bending low, lifting the tiger, and putting it on a hilltop far away make that challenge feel less threatening. And Lynn wrote back, oh, I love that image. Would you please carry some tigers for me? And would you teach me how to carry tigers? And
Wow, I like that.
that's
Yeah.
I see all of that. I mean, the book is in the three sections. The first one is the living with cancer, second, hospice and dying and helping her have a dying with grace. And then finally, there was me and my grief. So it's all three of those. And I see each of them as its own challenge, a different challenge. And each of them, I think, yeah, or in the last one, I had to figure out how to carry that tiger.
I'm currently working on a follow-up to hashtag surviving Alzheimer's, to the book, my book. And it's about life after caregiving. And kind of what keyed that off was something I had recently said to my husband, and then I saw a friend post it on her site because her mom's recently moved into memory care. And the question was, when am I going to be me again?
Yes.
You're forever changed, aren't you, Tony?
You're forever changed. It's funny, right now I am taking a course with David Kessler, who runs grief.com and is like a great expert on grief, a big course, not just me, on becoming a certified grief educator. And just today in the class, he was talking about how you are becoming a new you. After a major loss, the challenge, which sometimes takes years, it's different for everyone, is to integrate the loss, which never goes away, and the fact that that old life you had is never coming back into the new life and the new you, the person you are becoming.
And you can still find joy. I had said to Charlie the Wonder Husband, as I call him, I said, at least I'm on the other side of it. And he said, no, you're not.
You're
I
not.
was like, she passed away in 15, so we're going on 10 years. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I said no, because I don't have that. The play has given me the opportunity to act out, literally act out this grief and release it every night. He goes, oh no, you still have. He said you still have. How did he put it? You still have a darkness in you that was not there before, but you
Mm,
just hide it better. And I was like, wow, hadn't at first I was just like, "Oh, how could you say that about me, your wife? I'm so happy-go-lucky and everything." And the more I thought about it, I thought, wow, he's right. But it felt like I had something lifted off my shoulders, Tony,
mhm.
that I could admit, yeah, there's always going to be a little darkness. Everybody loses their mom at some point.
Yes.
But to lose her in such a horrible way.
Yes.
And to lose your wife to cancer and to lose somebody to a car accident, whatever, it does. It was nice to be able to admit, wow, I don't have that pressure of I have to figure out how to be the Dana pre-Alzheimer's.
Right, because you're never going to be that person. Because the experience, in your case, with an Alzheimer's loss, and several family members have had dementia, and in fact do right now. Although Lynn only had hospital delirium that came and went and lasted months rather than forever, but still, when you go through some kinds of losses like these, it's a trauma. It's not just grief, it's trauma. And it's the experience of years of the difficulty and the caregiving and watching this person become someone else and the anger and all of the things that come up. Well, of course that changes you. Now, I would argue that it enriches you, that it enlivens you, that it deepens you.
But it
And
takes a while to get to that realization.
oh my God, yes. And many of us never consciously get there, but hopefully we start living life more fully again after some amount of time that varies for everyone. And there's no one size fits all or one amount of time for everybody.
Right,
And
but give yourself permission to grieve, but also give yourself permission to realize it's okay to be different. It's
yes,
okay to be changed by all of it. Let me say the title again, because you're like me. We write titles that are entirely too long for our books. Carrying the Tiger, Living with Cancer, Dying with Grace, Finding Joy While Grieving. Give me an example of a couple of people that need to pick up this book. Somebody who needs it and is listening right now can figure that out probably for themselves. But maybe somebody who wants to get this for a friend. Who needs Tony Stewart's book, Carrying the Tiger?
the the single biggest audience for this book, I think, is people who are going through grief, know someone who's going through grief, have gone through grief themselves and feel embarrassed or ashamed about aspects that they haven't come out of. I think that the section towards the end of the book about my grief, I've been told again and again by readers, is really special. That very few people do. It's this kind of hashtag. It's the day-to-day journaling of what it is like to live in there. I also believe that people who are going through extensive caregiving for someone with, in this case, cancer, will benefit from following along and looking over my shoulder and seeing all of the horrible things that happened to me and Lynn and the good things and how all of it is normal. I want to normalize everything. And so if you are wondering what that's like or you're still living with the trauma of having done it and you're holding things in, you can read this and go, "Oh my gosh, look what happened to those people and they came out okay." And they felt all these horrible feelings and all these disgusting, dirty, messy things happened to them,
It
and
is
they came
dirty
out
and messy
okay.
and
It
awful
is it
sometimes.
is
It's just,
totally dirty and
and
messy.
it's okay to
When
admit all of that.
yes, yes. And so this book is my big admission of this is what happened. This is what it felt like. This is when I had those scary thoughts that I didn't want to, that made me feel ashamed. And now I've let them all out because when other people, in that case, our friend group, heard that I was going through this, they said, "Wow, you're helping me. You're helping me." So hopefully these same thoughts and feelings and admissions will help other people as they sort of normalize and go, it's all normal.
You said something at the beginning, and that is, it took me, when I first wrote the play, and I kept trying to write the explanation and the description, and I said, well, it's about my mom. People go, no, it's not. And I'm like, yeah, it's about my mom. No, it's not. It's about you. No, it's about my mom. It took me a couple of years, and, producers in New York, people who do this for a living, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I'm just making it up as I go. But it took me really making some changes to the script and sitting down with a director a little over a year ago who also lost her mom and her grandmother to Alzheimer's to finally make me see the light that it wasn't about my mom. She's the catalyst, she's the reason there's a story, but it's not about Alzheimer's. It's about you as a caregiver, and that's what your book is. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet, so I just sort of skimmed around because this
Mhm.
interview came up so quickly. But it's like you realizing too that it's not about Lynn. It's
Right.
about Tony. The
the my
caregiver.
exactly. And just like you, I had been writing this book for a year. I mean, not just the false start, but the real. I was 11 months into writing this book before enough people beat me up to say, Tony, a memoir is about the person writing the memoir. And I went back and made changes in the book, exactly like you're talking about, to own it, to admit, yeah, this is my story. I wrote this book because I love Lynn, but I actually wrote this book because people said that sharing this story helped them.
And that's why we do it, because it makes us feel good that we didn't go through this. I said, my mom's not going to have died in vain.
Right.
She loved to help people. I've inherited that from her. And, you know, you and I both felt, and still feel compelled to help people, but it also helps us as we continue
Yes.
to share.
Yes, exactly. I am loving these kind of conversations in a way I never expected because I find that sharing bits of my story on the air like this, so to speak, makes me feel good. I feel like I'm helping people, and that is adding meaning to the whole experience. Makes me
Yeah.
feel
And you didn't
terrific.
have to go through this awful, messy, horrible thing. You can come out on this side where it does something good comes
Yes.
out of a bad experience. Um, Fill us in before I let you go. How are you? I think I read somewhere about maybe a little joy and some love,
Yes.
a
Yes.
love connection. You're moving on. Tell me how Tony is moving on.
I like, for some reason, I prefer the phrase moving forward because even though it's just semantics, I'm not leaving anything behind, but I am continuing to move forward. I'm in a new relationship now. And in fact, the last part of the book is about the complexity and confusion and my guilt in starting to form a new relationship, which began only a few months after Lynn had died, grew out of talking about grief. Uh, that's the more proximate cause of finding joy while grieving, although I think I mean that in a much bigger sense. I'm doing really well.
Good.
I have a lovely partner now, and she encouraged me to write this book and, in fact, helped me write it, which I think was amazing because what is the book other than my story? It's a story about my love for my late wife. And here is this woman I'm forming a relationship with encouraging me to do that. So,
Relationships and love and sometimes one of these days I want to figure out all the secrets to the universe and why all these emotions. What? Okay, who did this to us and why? Well, I love it. I'm assuming Amazon, wherever books are sold, that sort of
It
thing.
is it is available everywhere books are sold. The easiest, the one-stop shopping is to go to my website, TonyStewartAuthor.com, where not only you can read, download samples, all that kind of stuff, but you click buy the book from there, and it comes to a page with all these different stores, the link to Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Bookshop.org. It's in audio. I read the audiobook myself. It's in ebook, of course, as well as in print. So if you go to TonyStewartAuthor.com and say you want to buy the book, it'll just shoot you to the right page at Amazon or wherever you want to buy it.
Last words, not final words, but last words. Somebody listening to this who needs just a little more push or oomph. What would you say to them?
Depending on which stage they're in, if you mean during caregiving, that would be one thing. My first response is because I think a lot about grieving and trauma, is that eventually it will get better. Sometimes it takes way longer than you think, and it feels like it never will. But eventually, just by living, it does get better. And don't let anyone tell you that you should be there sooner than you're ready to be there.
The name of his book is Carrying the Tiger. It's written really well. It is a bestseller, and I highly recommend picking it up no matter where you are in this journey. By the way, if you need more information, you can go to my website, daynasteele.com. I have got all kinds of resources there for you, whether it be the 28 questions that every family should ask I've got a PDF there on how to set up a dementia-friendly apartment, living space, like rugs. You shouldn't have a rug. There is also how to talk to your kids about Alzheimer's and dementia. Don't hide it from the kids. They are so much smarter than you think. DaynaSteele.com. You can find resources. You can find all the podcasts. You can find the play and more. I hope this helps a bit, and if it does, share it with others. You cannot do this crazy journey alone. And if you need more information on the book, the play, or more episodes, go to DaynaSteele.com. Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine is available in Kindle and paperback versions on Amazon. #Surviving Alzheimer's is produced by JFA Inc. in association with Blue Squirrel Productions.